My name's Richard Davis. I joined Kier in 1988 as a site manager, worked through contracts management, design management, and then the last 10 years I've been in quality management and quality assurance and performance. So my point being, I've been around a while. You do the math, so to speak. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about my experience with Geary, what I see as potentially the biggest problem the industry's got from its quality perspective, and maybe the tools that we've developed in Geary to help that. I'd also like to add that, like a lot of us now, I've used AI to produce my slides. Now, I'm going to let you decide whether that was a good idea, but when you do see them, it is intended to be me. So the problem statement, as I see it, is the failure, the modern failure, as I've called it, of the inspection and test plan. I became involved in Geary back in 10 years ago, 2015, 2016, when I could see the problem that we had in the industry in regards to the quality of our project, the quality of our projects, the quality of the widgets, as I called it. When I started work back in 1988, we worked at BS 5750. It was people with clipboards. And anyone that knows their quality history, that emanated from armaments and ammunition production after the First World War, and the need for those products to be accurate as they came out of the factories. So as I worked through my experience with Geary, I started to recognize from lots of other industries, I've been involved in the CQI as well, was that single repeatable issue that was getting reported back to me was what we call the ITP, the inspection and test plan. Somewhere in the last 10 years, we've lost the importance of the ITP. Whether it's the move to procedures and documentation, I'm not sure. When I joined Geary, we got involved in, my direct involvement, and it was why I got involved, was because it was a self-help group. The industry recognizing that we had problems with the products, the quality of the products that we're producing. And we latched onto some CITB funding, and I worked with Balfour Beatty and Galliford Try to look at what avoiding error training might look like for senior leaders of the business. And after workshopping this training that we were developing over several sessions, we collectively had an epiphany. A number of us had read the Matthew Syed's book on black box thinking, and the conversations kept coming back to the importance of some of his themes in that book. Tick boxes are not necessarily a bad thing. Examining our mistakes and learning from them was really important. The post-project lessons learnt workshop that we would all have built into our processes that we're familiar with were a good thing to have. But as a collective group, we recognized that was a challenging construction. Trying to get teams back together to review what went well, what went wrong at the end of a project is really challenging. Part of the teams, the experience has moved on. Those that are still involved in the project also want to move on. If it's a project of longevity or has got issues, it becomes really challenging to gather that experience. The other issue that we had with it is that you'll have all got that direct experience. It becomes a box ticking exercise. You're there to tick the box, put it on file. A lot of the time it wasn't having any, point beyond its, the record of it. So this led us to the thinking that perhaps if we were to turn it on its head and put the right people in the room before we start a project, it might be a better way of doing things, and thus the birth of the pre-mortem. We were able to, one of my sort of direct experiences from it is to put experts in the room with their peers at the beginning of a project that had huge energy, and you were able to start the project on the right footing. And what it did was start to lead, through the practice of the pre-mortem, teams to critically think about what project failure might look like and what they could do to avoid it. And it promoted ownership within those teams, a culture of vigilance and proactive risk management. This then led to development of the tools that supported that training, utilizing really basic techniques that have existed in management for time immemorial. Brainstorming, scenario planning, can reveal hidden risks that may not be immediately apparent and certainly don't sit in that record that you do post-project, and allows the teams to address them earlier. And then the really important tool that we discovered within the pre-mortem was how do we get to root cause? Again, loads of us would have had experience of trying to get to root cause analysis. Our conclusion was the simplest for the workshops that we were producing was the 5 whys. Allowing people to analyse the root cause of the potential error and allowing us to design action plans, very specific action plans, to put in place to avoid the error occurring. And then we started to develop it. We recommend that pre-mortem workshop, now that it had consolidated, should include the whole team, especially the customer. By openly discussing potential failures, teams can build a culture of transparency that wouldn't have been otherwise there, where members feel comfortable sharing their concerns and insights. A lot of that post-contract stuff, as you can imagine, if job's not gone well, it's very difficult to talk about what's gone wrong. Flip it on its head, it becomes anonymized, and therefore you can actually share that experience and get into the detail. Building trust within the team is essential, and creating that collaborative atmosphere that you can sustain throughout the life of the project. Involving teams in decision-making process gives them a greater sense of ownership over the project outcomes. Engaging team members actively in the discussion leads to increased motivation and commitment to project goals. And that cohesive team approach built through the involvement in the process enhances collaboration and overall project success. So that brings us back to the ITP. What we do is often still too complex to omit the inspection and test plan. But through the use of the pre-mortem, we've created tools that allow teams to focus on the areas that require an ITP and engage in that ITP again. The next step has to be how we digitize it for a younger workforce. So in conclusion, the pre-mortem analysis is a powerful tool for planning for project quality. It enhances risk identification, improves project execution, fosters team collaboration, and ultimately leads to better project outcomes. Embracing this practice can significantly benefit any project. Thank you for listening.